So 1237 to 1241, that's the period that you all remember. The Batu Khan comes, he conquers, no one's resisted, he goes back. But after this, there is the Mongol state, which is remembered under the name of the Golden Horde. Okay? But the Golden Horde, over time, itself falls apart into various entities. And these entities they're often very fuzzy in European history. They kind of just show up on the margins every now and again, making attacks or as allies in wars or whatever. But these are fairly durable entities. And we have to understand Moscow not just as a post-Rus entity, but also as one of these post-Mongol entities, along with the Nogai Horde, along with the Kazan Khanate, along with the Crimean Khanate. And by the way, for us, the Crimean Khanate is the most important because the Crimean Khanate is the one that controls Crimea and then much of the north coast of the Black Sea, what's now the south of Ukraine. So we have to imagine the Mongols establishing a state which over time fragments into a number of different entities, of which one is Moscow. Now, how is Moscow different? Moscow is different in religion. It's not pagan as the Mongols are, to use the term of abuse that the Christians use, and Moscow doesn't convert to Islam. This is important too. The rest of these entities convert to Islam. So, but Moscow doesn't. Moscow is Orthodox. Moscow is Orthodox, but it's Orthodox in an interesting way, right? It's Orthodox in a place. Mark this for the future. It's Orthodox in a place where there's no other way of being Christian. This is really important. I mean, I think right down to the present moment. There's no other way of being Christian. If you're Christian, you're Orthodox. That's it. Whereas west of this, in Kiev and in the rest of Europe, there are going to be lots of other ways of being Christian. And even if you are Orthodox in what's now Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Lithuania, you're going to be in a series of encounters with other sorts of Christians over the next few centuries. In Moscow, this is not true. Orthodoxy is Christianity, Christianity is orthodoxy. And this is all, and related to this, also to Mark, there isn't any theology. There isn't any disputation about religion in Moscow. There, in points further west, there is going to be. The Orthodox are going to take part in all of the interesting conversations around Reformation, Counter-Reformation, all of that. That's not going to be happening in Moscow until much later, when Moscow and Kiev come into contact for the first time, which is not for centuries. It's not for centuries. It's not in this lecture. It's in the 17th century. Okay, so we're in Mongol Rus. Mongol Rus is the northeast. It's the district which I mentioned last time, Suzdal. And then the Suzdal, surrounding territories, the northeast of what had been Rus. And the way that the political system is set up by this, is set up in this northeastern Rus, this Mongol Rus, is really a kind of fresh start, in the sense that the Mongols have come and destroyed. Okay, good, that's true for everyone. Then there's the Black Death. It's a bit of a mess. There's really no one around to write. And in addition to that, a new principle of political succession is set up. The principle of political succession in the old Rus, the one based in Kiev, was admittedly very messy and to the point of incomprehensibility, but it had something to do with the ruler and his sons. It's about as much as we can say. And that's, by the way, not so unusual in Europe. This whole idea that it was the eldest son and it was all very simple, that usually covers over a whole bunch of illegitimacy and bloodshed. But, okay. So, illegitimacy and bloodshed gets a lot of nods. I just want to record that for the camera. All right, so focus. So in northeastern Rus, in and around Suzdal, there's a new succession principle, which is how well can you collect taxes for the Mongol overlord? That's the new principle of power. So the Mongols accept that there's something called Rus. They have no trouble with that. But who is the Grand Prince of Rus? The Grand Prince of Rus is the person who can collect the tribute. So that is a new principle of rule. That is new, compared to Kiev, obviously, where if you were in Kiev, you were the one taking the tribute, right? And by the way, this is a really fundamental thing about political power. If you want to figure out who is actually in charge, who is paying tribute to whom? Because everyone says, I'm the king and the czar and all the galaxies and so on, right? That's very easy. Having stationary, okay, they didn't have stationary yet, but having a list of titles is very easy, right? But what really matters is, are you paying the tribute or is someone paying the tribute to you? So the rulers of Muscovy had titles, right? They were the grand princes of Moscow, which sounds great and certainly had its pluses. But they were paying tribute to the Mongols, and they were the grand princes of Moscow because they could pay tribute to the Mongols. The Mongols chose the man who could collect the tribute.